Okay, this is called Road Rage 3, which is the UK version of a game called Touge 3, which is a Touge game, funnily enough. So this is the second game that I'm looking at on PS2, so this week I've been looking at Touge games, which are Japanese mountain racing games, so drifting, that kind of thing. And as I said in the previous videos, really I got into this series by looking at Initial D in the arcade, so just under 10 years ago. And I picked up these games probably around 2007 when I first bought a PS2, and I got these three games pretty cheap, but I didn't know what the series was. I just knew them as Japanese mountain drifting games. And what I've tried to do is show these games as really going from the most arcadey version first, which is called Tokyo Road Race, which is Battle Gear 2. The names are confusing. And that really is just a home version of the arcade game. But this game is, I think it's still based on an arcade machine, but there's a bit more to it. The idea is, I think for this home version they've added a career mode, so the idea is that you can play through the tracks in the daytime against multiple cars, and then play against really the same track at night, but in a battle mode. So this is what I'm playing now. This is against one car, and the idea is once you've defeated the car... Oh, that was a nice slide. Oh crap, hit the wall. Once you've defeated the car at night, you get extra tracks, but when you finish tracks in the day, you get abilities to customize your car. So this is really, I suppose, why I've put this game in the middle, because there's a limited degree of customizability, whereas the third one, and please feel free to guess what the game is. I won't say yes or no, but it might be worth saying I guessed it first, or not, if you don't fancy it. But the handling on this is a bit different to the first one. As you can probably tell, it plays a little bit slower, and I hate to say that this game feels almost sterile, but it doesn't really have as much of a character as other games that I've played. Even the Saturn ones, as rough and ready as they were graphically, well, you felt that you were on the road. There was almost an immediacy about it. Maybe it was just that the camera was close to the road, but I don't think that's the case. I don't know, it's hard to put your finger on it. Lost. Okay, let's try one in the day. Okay, this is the Akagi circuit, and I'm playing it in the daytime, so as you can see we're playing against two other cars, which isn't a huge number of cars to be racing against, but then again I suppose given the tightness of the tracks I can't see how it would work with a large pack of cars. And this time I'm playing as the trusty Toyota Truno, well, it'd be a disservice not to be a proper Initial D fanboy on this and play as Takumi's father's car. Although I think... crumbs and other stuff. Yeah, I think playing as the harder cars on these kind of games are not quite harder as in Class A cars like the NSX. Just they're not quite as much fun because you tend to plough into all the walls, but I think the slightly slower and more manoeuvrable cars drift a lot better, at least on these tight turns. There's not that much of a sensation of speed on this, and I think, as you can probably tell, this is perhaps my least favourite Touge game, and I think it's just due to the lack of speed. I mean, there's certainly a challenge in this game, and there is the physics model's okay. You do feel in control of the vehicle, and you do feel as if you're drifting, and the control on that's pretty good. But I think the detachment that I mentioned, and perhaps really just the lack of speed. Just, I don't know, I think because of that it's not quite as good. I think with a lot of these games there's not that much between them. I mean, if you look at the screenshots, they probably think they're from the same game. So they're all in the same tracks, more or less. It's the same areas, and they tend to share certain regions. So the tracks are in, you know, similar roads. Oh crap! But I have to say, I'm enjoying this more than I did the other day. I pulled it out just to give it a quick try, and I didn't really enjoy it. I was getting a bit bored playing it, but now I'm actually quite enjoying it a bit more, and I think it might just be because I'm using a slower car with a bit more controllability. The thing I do like about this game, and I think more than perhaps the Tokyo Road Rage, or confusing the names, Tokyo Road Race game, is that in a lot of really Japanese media, things tend to look grey. Now, it's a slightly unusual thing, but if you look at Japanese media, particularly games set in Japan, the ones going for realism have this sort of grey look to them, and I'm not sure if it's just because there's mist in the air or whether it's an atmospheric thing, but you tend to get this grey look, and I quite like this because of that. Shenmue had the same thing, and for that reason this really does make you feel as if you're in Japan, as opposed to some generic track somewhere else in the world. Okay, this is in the daytime on the fourth track, so this is one that opens up once you've played a couple of tracks. The fogging's really nice actually in this. I think this is perhaps where the grey comes from, but I think the problem with it is because they've gone for this real world look. There's not a lot of variety in the tracks in the way that they look. They tend to be a little bit generic in a way, which, I don't know, it depends what you want in a game. I think if you are really a hardcore Touge racer, or player rather, and that's what you want a very realistic, slow-paced game that's over realistic tracks, then this might be more your type of game. But I think having played the third game, which I'm still not going to mention, just to be a tease. Oh, balls. Ah, that's me being a prat. I still haven't found the reverse gear on any of these games. Anyway, I think I might have fouled it up with that. Yeah, that's just karma for me being a prat. And being a tease. But the third one really has got it's got a lot more tracks, and it's got a career mode in it, and you feel as if you are racing on real tracks. And once you play that, it makes this look a bit of almost a compromise. It's not arcadey, but not really a career game, and it's not really a simulation, and it's not really a fun arcade one. Which I suppose might sound a little bit negative, but I don't know. I think if you play this game and are a fan, then please correct me. I'm not saying I'm any kind of authority on this. Yeah, I think the trouble perhaps with the battle mode is because you don't really feel connected to the track, and you don't feel connected to the other car, it loses perhaps some of the excitement. Whereas the initial D arcade machine is all about that, and you've got, if you've read the comics, if you haven't read the comics and you want to then just skip a minute or so, but I'll spoil them slightly. But anyway, for those still listening, and if you've made it this far into the video, the way that Takumi manages to get around the tracks at inhuman speeds is there's a little drainage ditch on the side, and he sticks his wheel in it and uses it to fling him around the corners. But I'll give that another go. I'll give it another try. Yeah, but the way that Takumi manages to do it is to use this track, and it means he can fling himself around corners faster than you really should be able to. And the game has that, so you're racing around these very tight, very almost claustrophobic looking tracks. That's perhaps more due to the way the lens works in the game. But you feel as if your car's taking up the entire road, and you've got to be really quite precise in your movements, whereas this, the road seems quite wide compared to the car, which I suppose is a bit more realistic. But the way the game's developers have made it is that you can just slide a little bit more, so you've got slightly more space to drift. Let's see if I can actually win this. Oh, you bugger. Go on. Come on. Oh, that seems to have worked. In a way, I'm missing the rear view mirror. I think it would have been quite useful in these games. It's almost essential, because you've got to see what your rival's doing in order to be cheeky and get in front of him. Or her. It's quite refreshing having tracks that I suppose are meant to be driven on the left side, because in the UK we drive on the left, and in Japan they drive on the left as well. Although I think well, this game doesn't really matter, but it's nice just to know that you're driving on the correct side of the road. I'm really having trouble trying to catch this guy up. I think he's driving a more powerful car than I am, but he's having to brake a lot more. Ooh. So much for the racing line. I don't think it really applies too much, because it's all about the drifting, which throws things out. Ooh, crunch. Nope. Sod off. Where is he? He's lurking there somewhere. Come on. I think this is where the lack of sensation speed spoils it, because you're at full pelt and it's just tootling along. Right, okay, I think I'll leave it there. Just to summarise, I suppose, as you probably gathered, I'm not a big fan of this game. I think I played it for a couple of hours when I first bought it years ago, and I haven't put it in the machine since. I've played Tokyo Road Race a few times just as an arcade, but the one that I'll show next really is the best one I'll say series. They're not made by the same manufacturer, but they're in the same style for the PS2. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.